We are back. This is the Field of 68 After Dark. We are live on Sirius XM Channel 84. That is the ESPNU station. We are streaming on YouTube. Please, if you're watching over there, drop some questions for us in the chat. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. All of that stuff really does help out the channel. All right. I teased it before. Arizona right now looks like they're going to end up being a 1 seed if they don't do something dumb. Auburn looks like they're going to end up getting a 1 seed if they don't do something dumb. Gonzaga right now is up by 20 on St. Mary's at home. What we thought was going to be one of the toughest games that they have in the WCC. I feel pretty safe saying that they're going to end up being a number 1 seed in this year's NCAA tournament, which brings us to that fourth number 1 seed. Now, there are a bunch of teams that are in contention, but I think the most interesting conversation to have at this point is Kentucky versus Kansas. Sweeney, I'm going to you first on this one. Kentucky right now, 5-4 against quadrant 1 opponents. 4-0 against quad 2. They don't have any other losses other than a quad 1 loss. They are fourth in the net, and they are third right now on KenPom. Kansas, they have a little bit of a stronger profile at the top. They're 7-3 against quad 1, 6-1 against quad 2. They have 13 wins against the top 2 quadrants. There are not very many teams that have a record that is that good. Right now, gun to your head, I'm making you make a decision. Who is your fourth number 1 seed?
I think it's Kentucky, and for me, I think it would have to be overwhelming resume-wise in favor of Kansas to give them the nod if it's a conversation, given that Kentucky dominated them on their own floor, right? Like, and again, it's the committee's job to evaluate 30, 32 games, whatever the case may be. To me, like if I'm in the room, if it's at all close, the tie has to go to the team that blew out the other on the opponent's court. So, look, I think Kentucky's resume is solid enough. I think obviously they're going to have some opportunities here in the next couple of weeks to bolster it further, right? Like if they can get at Tennessee and at Arkansas, if they win both those games, they're going to really boost that resume even more than it already is right now. And I think as long as it's close, it has to go to Kentucky. Right now, it's close enough. Again, if Kentucky loses a couple of games down the stretch and Kansas separates, maybe you get in a situation where it goes to Kansas. But to me, that game, that common opponent game to me has to matter enough.
Yeah. Prom, where you at?
I think right now today I'd put Kentucky as the number 1 seed. Without question. Obviously, it's very close. You could debate it a lot of different ways. The interesting thing to watch is though Kentucky has more opportunities because of their games at Tennessee, at Arkansas, at Florida, games like that, even home LSU, those are also opportunities that they could get beat as well. I mean, those are tough games and tough environments. So on the flip side, I think Kansas, if you look at the way they finish, I really only look at one game that I circle and I'm saying, all right, this at Baylor game, if I'm a betting man, I think Kansas can get the rest. And if they do that, then I think they can take over Kentucky. But right now, because of the head-to-head Kentucky-Kansas, I would go with Kentucky. Both teams in their conference tournaments obviously have ton of success, because obviously they've got really great programs and elite head coaches, but they also have fan bases that travel to those conference tournaments. So expect those teams to make great runs in the conference tournaments as well. So Kentucky today, but don't be surprised to see Kansas overtake them possibly down the stretch.
Yeah, and it's not, if they're missing Ty at all next week, where you got to play Alabama, who gets up for games like this, and you have to play at Tennessee without your best perimeter player, that's a tough ask, because there's a lot to kind of work your way through at this point still. Well, I'll play a little bit of devil's advocate here, because Kansas right now, we did the math out. I believe that they have the second most quad 1 wins. There are 3 teams that have 8 quadrant 1 wins. Kansas has the second most. That number is going to end up going up before the season is done. They have enough quadrant 1 opportunities left on their schedule. They have 13 wins against the top 2 quadrants. Kentucky has 9. I understand that they won or they lost at home to Kentucky. And honestly, like if those 2 teams are playing on a neutral court, I'm probably taking Kentucky to win that game on the neutral court. And I'm guessing that Kentucky would probably be favored, but we're not doing predictive stuff here. We're doing what you have accomplished. And they have 2 more quadrant 1 wins, and they have 2 more quadrant 2 wins. They have 13 more wins against what would end up being kind of that NCAA tournament team conversation. So Sweeney, how much of that do you think gets factored into this decision-making process? Like at some point, you kind of have to look at the numbers on the paper. And I think if you look at the numbers on the paper, Kansas probably has a better resume.
Yeah, I mean,
no
absolutely. And
question.
I think to me, again, it's how much can Kansas separate? Right now, I think it's clear, but not overwhelmingly clear. To me, I think it has to be overwhelmingly clear that Kansas is the better resume for you to give them the nod. Because again, it'd be one thing if these teams had played to a 2-point game and Sheepway gets a late tip in to win the game, right? If that's the story, I think my answer right now would be Kansas. But I mean, look, it was an 18-point game and it wasn't even that close at times. I mean, Kentucky could have 30-pieced them. And to me, and again, I don't know what the committee will do. We have the great Feeling the 68 show where you can get their better insights. But I think, to me, if it's at all close, we got to make sure the games matter. And that game was a showcase opportunity for both teams. Everyone was watching. One team dominated the other.
But I think you're right, Rob, in regards to, hey, how do we judge it, right? If we're just going off the paper, it's Kansas. When we're talking right here, we're analyzing it. But if you're just going off the paper that they say these are the rules or these are the requirements, then Kansas is your number one seed if you look at the quad 1 and quad 2 components.
Yeah, and that also brings into a little bit of a conversation that we had off air where if a mid-major team had North Carolina's resume right now, we would not be talking about them as a potential NCAA tournament team, right? If Murray State right now had North Carolina's resume, we would not be talking about them as a potential NCAA tournament team. But they're North Carolina, and they're in every bracket. And I do think it's important to when you're projecting this stuff to make very clear that it's not computers, it's not metrics. You're not going strictly off the net. There are 12 human beings sitting in a room looking at a bunch of pieces of paper, deciding which one they like more. And the human element is always going to be a factor in this, whether you like it or not.